I have recently noted another god appearing just below the image of Kosk upon Gatorman totems. This new deity appears as a stylized Gatorman boker with a shroud-like headdress, adorned with what appears to be human skulls, and an open maw stained with blood. From what I've been able to gather from the Gatorman tribes in the area, he is known as Barnabas the Bloody Maw, or simply Bloody Barnabas.
I have located the remains of the supply column from Corvus, or at least what's left of it. My men and I searched for survivors for some time and we found nothing but waterlogged corpses.
When I arrived at the Red Fang village, I found it completely destroyed and the area littered with Gatorman corpses. The attack on the Red Fangs had been carried out by a powerful Gatorman shaman, or boker called Barnabas, who had demanded that Hisker and his tribe unite with Barnabas' own and accept his rule. When Hisker refused, Barnabas and an overwhelming force of Gatormen attacked, slaying every Red Fang that did not flee into the swamp.
Now, we've done a lot of work to build up the aura of this classic WarMachine icon, but how do we translate that to the miniature? I decided early on that a character like Barnabas needed a non-traditional paint scheme, something that really emphasizes how unique he is to the setting. After thinking on it for a while, it almost felt too obvious. Albino or white alligators definitely exist within the setting. There's plenty of proof of them in the rulebooks. It would only make sense that a character of such mystique would have such a unique pigmentation. Now, while albino alligators exist within a variety of tones, mainly white, pink, and yellow, I decided to really lean into the pink tones, especially in the shadows and fleshy bits. If I could trick the mind into the familiar tones of pink and white, then I'd have a chance of pulling this off. So after quickly priming in black and laying down a white ink zenithal for road map purposes, I set to the task of blocking in our pink with Pro Acryl's magenta. While the easy answer would have been to paint white and wash the model with the pink, I decided to go the much harder route, by starting with a heavy, darker pink and layering my way up to white. Why? Because I hate myself. Now, in our world, albino alligators are extremely rare, with only 100 to 200 existing in the wild. Their bright white skin makes it difficult to camouflage from predators or absorb heat. Every day for these gators is an absolute battle, so it would only make perfect sense that a gator man of such rarity would have to fight this whole life just to exist. In a world as cruel as the Blindwater swamps, it would only make sense that survival means bloodshed, and with that bloodshed came a thirst for power. Fighting all urges early on to make Barney the purple dinosaur jokes, I worked that magenta up, very slowly mixing more and more white in as we layered up. With the flesh done for now, it's time to move on to the cloak. As a character, Barnabas is known to surround himself with bloodshed and carnage. It would only be fitting to make his robes a muddy, bloody red. So staying true to our form, we're going to start with a dark red, namely Berserker Red from Two Thin Coats, and again, work our way up to a brighter red. We are purposely mixing in white to the red, not only because it lightens the color, but also it desaturates the tone. We're really leaning into a dark and somewhat grim tone with this painting, so desaturated reds will do a lot of work. For a character who will one day take the helm of the Lord of Blood, that's spoilers for another episode, these grim and somewhat dark touches will carry a lot of the weight. I also just want to point out that I, especially with this cloak, am pulling the paint up to the higher regions of the model, really making a point to deposit the most amount of pigment where the highlights should be, therefore creating a slow and subtle gradient up from dark to light. Now, when painting in such desaturated tones, it's kind of easy to lose sight of the contrast. I wasn't happy with the contrast here, so I came back in with Pro Acryl Brown, adding it to the red and really kind of adding depth to those shadows. I also added a little bit of orange ink to my highlights to make them pop a little more, and I'll be doubling down on all of this with a brown oil wash later on. Finding myself finally happy with the contrast on this robe, I'm ready to move on to the next step. Now, you can't become a god in Immoren without cracking a few skulls, so let's ourselves get cracking on painting a few skulls. Now, my formula for painting skulls is pretty simple. We're going to start with the black for depth. We're going to work our way up through layers to Two Thin Coats Dust Bowl, then to Two Thin Coats Temple Stone, and continue to layer all the way up to Ivory. Now, the white reminds you of skulls, but the brown gives the skulls an aged and decayed look. Now, once you're done layering up from brown to white, you're left with something that looks pretty natural, pretty haunting. Something that's pretty much a theme for this model is skulls. I think it's true that when you're in a cult in Immoren, and you're trying to lead that cult, nothing says follow me quite like a head on a pike. Now, axe and base not included, we're beginning to wind down here on fine details. We don't need these details really to pop, but we've got ropes, bandages, and teeth and claws left to paint. So we're going to go over them really quickly. For the ropes, I came in with camo green and layered it up to trader green. Pretty simple. Keeping with that theme of simplicity, to paint the teeth and claws, we started off with a sickly tone of yellow and then layered it up to an ivory before finally giving it a wash or tint with a Michael's yellow ink to really dial in that sick and gnarled look. Finally, addressing the axe head, my preferred method of painting metal comes from like the brush technique. So what I'll do is I'll take a silver that I like, or darker silver, dry brush it over black, and create what looks like brushed or rough steel. We also went over with some battle axe bronze and quickly picked out a few details on the axe head, as well as a few medallions along his body. Working our way through the details, we still had the wood to address. Now the zenithal highlight gave us a great roadmap of values from white to black, so we watered down some scale 75 Inktense wood and used that as almost kind of like a speed paint to layer over that zenithal highlight and create a more natural looking wood pattern. In the words of my second favorite Megan, it's all about that base, and darn it, if she wasn't right. A base can make or break a paint job. It's the painter's last chance to really frame a story, like the fine mat around a photograph. For Barnabas, I took extra care in picking a base topper. Luckily for me, Zabavka Workshop had just designed a brilliant dead swamp base that fit Barnabas exactly. It even came with extra skulls. Lucky us, we definitely needed more skulls. The base in hand was marvelous, albeit a little bit bigger than a regulation WarMachine base. Luckily, Bloody Barnabas isn't prime legal anyways, so this will ultimately serve as a display piece, a totem for future Gator greatness. Anxious to finish, I slapped it on the top of the base and got to work. Now a little secret about me, I have a problem painting trees. I don't love doing it, I never feel like I get them right, so painting this dead tree was a tall order. Suffice to say, I'm no Bob Ross, there's no happy little trees on this base. I decided to dry brush in and layer colors that you could find on swampy trees. Using the black as a shadow, I jumped between grays and browns and greens and back to gray again until it landed in a place I could be happy with. Yep. After laying down my favorite skull formula, I made short work of tall grass by dry brushing them from a sickly green to a sickly yellow, being careful not to make any one piece too bright as to contrast the white gator hiding in its brambles. Now the base left a large area to fill. Other people who use this base seem to fill it with clear resin or dirt. I decided what we needed was some good old mud. To make mud, I mixed huge minis snow basing texture with my own mixes of browns and greens until I had a color that felt muddy enough for me. After laying that down and letting it dry, the swamp was ready for its god. Barnabas was coming home. Once he was properly adhered to his base, all that was really left was a few special effects to really tie the room together. I started by painting some wet mud around his feet. I got it on his hands and a little bit on his cloak to really connect him to the base. I think I even got some on the skulls on top. A muddy boy is a muddy boy after all. I really feel like this axe spends its nights just soaking in swamp beds, waiting for its next chance to kill. So I thought this was a great opportunity to bring in some huge minis rust effects, and caked that liberally into this axe blade. Lastly, there's no bloody Barnabas without a little bit of blood. So we took out the blood for the blood god technical and dabbed some here, 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 and a lot here. Yeah, even more over there. That'll do it.
yet to encounter this chieftain myself, but the villagers I have questioned are terrified of him. He purportedly wields a huge axe and adorns himself with the skulls of his victims. Additionally, more than one account insists he commands great swamp beasts, in addition to dozens of gator men. My lord, let me be blunt. I am ill-equipped to deal with this situation, and I will not throw away my life in a futile attempt to hunt this gator man. Not in the trackless swamp. You must provide me more men-at-arms, or simply you must relocate the surviving villagers.